Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in, like, subscribe, and all the other stuff in between. Today we have a special edition, as you can tell, because I'm wearing a black polo and a Black Hawk tactical vest, which means we're talking about Blackwater, the former private military contractor. And why? Because a random pawn shop in Elizabeth City, South Carolina ended up buying out everything that was left out of Blackwater's training inventory. So they had DPMS, Bushmasters, a random combination of guns with a lot of sire rail systems, Daniel defense barrels, all kinds of different really cool configurations. I was only able to get like a random DPMS here with an H-bar barrel that was probably used as an Iraqi training rifle. However, to me, it's still pretty cool due to the history. Now, the right side of the firearm, there is no real wear whatsoever. On the left side of the firearm, you can see that there's some scratches and things, and more than likely that was due to the way that it was carried on the chest. Now, when I originally picked it up, as we're going to go into the history of Blackwater, I thought that it was potentially really probably only used for, training purposes, whether foreignly or domestically. But then I started looking and going through threads and finding pictures of the former Blackwater contractors. And then we'll get into the history of why 16-inch barrels were probably used. Maybe not necessarily this firearm, but other ones. So 1993-94, we have the advent of the M4 being adopted by the U.S. military. Then 1997, Eric Prince, former Navy SEAL, develops and creates Blackwater. Blackwater then has a pretty good reputation all the way up until 2007. There was a shooting of civilians, 17 casualties in Nisour Square. And then after that, the reputation kind of declined, and it was, Blackwater was bought and sold and traded more times than I can't think of a good metaphor. But there were some really cool things that Blackwater did with their firearms that was different than what the U.S. military was doing, or even, I think, special forces, at least at the time. One of the things is they were approved to use whatever firearms they could find in country. So there's a lot of pictures of them holding random AKs, more than likely Russian configurations, and you could tell due to the angle of the rear trunnion on a lot of the AKs that they were holding, especially the underfolders. The other thing that I noticed was the usage of Colt 6933 uppers. Our U.S. government, as far as I'm aware, our military, never actually issued the 6933. It was more of a civilian and law enforcement marketed upper. I'm sure that special forces in some branch or some level did use the 6933. However, I'm unaware if or into what capacity that they did. I do think I found some random article or evidence that the 6933 was used by special forces like Delta or something, but I can't remember for certain. But I did see a lot of these configurations, or the 6933 upper configured in a lot of different ways by Blackwater. One thing being the front sight post generally was removed, and it looked like a precision reflex front sight post or something similar, not Yankee Hill, but something similar to the old precision reflex with a handguard, like a quad rail. There was also just complete 6933 uppers that had sire rail systems, which was pretty cool. Now, the sire rail systems, when they were out and just general population, were very cheap, and it didn't seem like they were very popular. Now they're extraordinarily expensive. This pawn shop, I paid $300 for this complete rifle. My buddies came with a sire rail system and, again, a Daniel defense barrel. He paid $400. So this pawn shop was really just blowing out the inventory and getting rid of it. And jokingly, when I bought this and called in, they were like, war crimes included, man. We're shipping it out today. So Blackwater did have somewhat of a negative reputation towards the end of before they were dissolved and like sold off and things of that nature. One of the other things that the pawn shop had was a bunch of Glock 17s. So Blackwater used Glock 17s, M9s, 226s. I think Sig Sauer even made a Blackwater exclusive 226. Now, I think it was a commemorative, or maybe, yeah, it was a commemorative or something like that. So Glock 17s, Beretta M9s, and then again, Sig made a commemorative Blackwater 226. Now, they did also use Colt 1991s, which I did mean to grab one and pull it out, but I thought that was an interesting list on the list of their equipment. Not just the Colt 1911, but Colt 1991s. Kind of cool, mainly because I own one is the reason I think it's cool. We also see a crossover in the technology here, because if you think 1993, again, advent of M4, And then we have Eric Prince forming the company in 1997, which we still saw a lot of 727s and 723s being issued and used during that time period, and even during the early days of Iraq. We also had a lot of, all the way into the 2000s from the last threat or the last post that I did, last video on overlapping technology, we had a lot of M16A2s still being issued all the way through 2012. Now, one of the things that I found that was really interesting is the usage of 16-inch barrels. So this is, it's semi-automatic. It was probably, I would say, definitely a training rifle of some type, whether it be for the Iraqi forces. And at one point, at one point, Century Arms did import a lot of DPMS Iraqi training rifles back into the U.S. I think that was around 2007, 2008 period, and I was broke, didn't get one. But the 16-inch barrel usage from Blackwater, there was a couple different theories when I was looking at the threads and on forums, and it tended to correlate with one, either the lack of supply due to the U.S. military like gearing up and like replacing all their previous arsenal with M4s, or it had to do with plausible deniability from where they were contractors with the U.S. government, and if they were using like a 16-inch 6920 style firearm with a sire rail system, it kind of left a level of deniability. Now, looking at pictures is how I was able to discern the 14.5 versus 16-inch barrels, which is honestly kind of hard to do unless you have two people standing side by side holding firearms pretty generally, because like camera angles can lie. And then realizing that 90% of their stock, 99% of the stock of the training rifles that they did use were 16-inch barrels. So looking at the pictures comparison, contrasting with the 14.5 723 or 727 beside a guy that was also a Blackwater contractor holding a M4 style rifle that was definitely 16 inches. Then as I kept skimming through pictures, I saw multiple photos of Blackwater contractors using 16-inch barrel guns. So whether that was due to the supply and demand or whether that was due to the plausible deniability, I have absolutely no idea. But the conjecture on the forums was pretty interesting of why that may have been. So that's just all up in the air and for fun. The other thing, just Blackwater gear in general, Remington 870s were used for like breaching guns. And outside of that, guys, that's all I have for the video. It was mainly just a fun piece to show off the Blackwater training rifle that I picked up. And that was really it, guys. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you want to see next, and get out this weekend. Go LARPing. Go on some Blackhawk tactical gear and go do something fun.